Of quorum.
Lehman. Maher. Roberts. Stroman. Pettigrew. Sechrist. Bieberdorf. Ham. Evans. Roseland. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we will have an invocation by Pastor Greg Blanc, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are able and willing, please rise.
Oh, good evening. Grateful to be here with you again tonight and to follow God's exhortation in 1 Timothy 2 to make intercessions and thanks for those who are in authority, that we'd live quiet and peaceable lives in godliness and reverence. So let's pray. Let's pray. Lord, we are grateful for the dedication of these men and women and the sacrifice that they make in serving our city. And even though I'm sure at times they feel like they've got such a burden on their shoulders, I pray that they would know that they are valued and they are appreciated and that they're loved. Father, we open this meeting inviting you and invoking your presence here. Let your grace and your peace be evident. We are thankful that you love the people of Rapid City and you want what's best for us. We're also grateful that our state motto declares, under God the people rule, and as a community, we're grateful to the men and women you have allowed to govern us. We ask that you give them your wisdom as they bear the privilege and responsibility to lead the people of Rapid City, knowing their decisions impact many others. Lord, we ask that you bless Mayor Solomon and the city council members and the police and the fire chiefs and the other officials here and their families as they serve the citizens of Rapid City. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Got a motion by Ham, second by Stroman to adopt. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will move on to general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I do have a handful of speaker request forms, and we will begin with Chris Stover.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I appreciate your time to be able to speak to you tonight. So I'm a longtime Rapid City resident. I've been active within the community, Friends of Rapid City Parks, also Black Hills Fly Fishers, and most recently a group called Clean Up Rapid Creek. The last 3 years, we've spent a pretty decent amount of time, one weekend, 9 months out of the year, cleaning up the creek, different sections of the creek. Just yesterday, I was fishing the section behind Bacon Park, and I've cleaned that section of creek, organized cleanups 3 times in the last 3 years. The amount of garbage that I saw yesterday is as bad as I've ever seen it. I don't want to come here and complain. I want to offer up some solutions for sure. I believe that we have a litter problem here in Rapid City. Our population is growing, and it doesn't really matter if you're behind Bacon Park, if you're at Rushmore Crossing, any of the Safeways, Walmart, wherever you are, there's a lot of litter that's blowing around. This is a windy place, right? So 2 solutions I have is, number 1 is I would encourage Rapid City to start enforcing its code. Okay, so I looked it up, and literally I'm here tonight because of my fishing last night. I did catch a decent fish, but that's beside the point. So one of them is no person shall sweep into or deposit in any gutter, street, or other public place within the city any accumulation of litter from any building or lot or any public or private sidewalk. Every person owning or occupying property shall keep the sidewalks and alleys abutting the property free of litter. Any person being the owner, tenant, or person in control of any private property shall at times all maintain the premises free of uncontainerized litter. Believe me when I say there is an inordinate amount of uncontainerized litter. I'd actually like to thank Pat Roseland. Pat has been out on numerous creek cleanups with us, so I think Pat's pretty familiar with what we have going on. Different sections of creek have different amounts of garbage, and you can see it from one side of town to the other, and it kind of changes with the business and how the parks are being used, what have you. So I would encourage Rapid City to start doing some code enforcement. We don't need more rules, we just need to enforce the rules that are already on the books. My other solution is I would encourage Rapid City to take up a thought that I've actually been kicking around for some time now. My English teacher wife came up with Rapid City Can. I would encourage us to look at starting a campaign here in town called Rapid City Can and start being more proactive, because we have to bring awareness to this. The state legislature will not allow us to ban a plastic bag or a straw. So we need to get more attention to this so fewer people are allowing their bags to blow into the creek, because that is the #1 piece of garbage we pull from the creek. And I see my time has expired. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have Brian Peck. And Mr. Peck, as a reminder, we have 3 minutes and we'll have the countdown up above us here.
Gotcha. Thank you. We're still working on the homeless situation. There's been some really fun stuff that I'm working on right now. I want to encourage the council to possibly let me build a 40-foot teepee on the soccer field that we can use as basically, I've found 3 awesome band shells that we can build over there. One is in down in Edgemont. It's the coolest little, anyway, I have pictures of 3 of them. There's one in Decorah, Iowa that's absolutely cool. And they can basically have bathrooms underneath. It's like, if you remember Groundhog's Day, the movie, they're like that. But we could build something like that over on a soccer field over on East Boulevard North. So that is one of the things that I think we could do that would be helpful to help the homeless have housing. I'm also figured out what the guys want on the street. They want a 30-foot teepee in the middle with 18 feet teepees around it. So if I build they don't want a German farmhouse. German farmhouses, they just as soon burn them. That was kind of what they were up to back in 1840 during the Laramie Treaty. That's what they agreed to quit doing. Quit burning houses, killing the farmers that were coming out here in 1840 along the Oregon Trail and Bozeman Trail. So they agreed to quit doing that if they got all of western South Dakota. So anyway, the history of that's been really interesting, because that's my relatives basically homesteaded down in Nebraska on that land. And so it's got a personal thing to me. My success story that I have so far is there's a guy that I was helping out down at the library. He had an apartment across that he wanted a security deposit on. So I gave him a couple $100 to get a security deposit. Come to find out his name is Fleming. I go, well, where are you from? He goes, down by Hot Springs. I said, what was your dad's name? He said, Kyle. I said, your uncle was my best friend in 1st grade, and your dad was in 3rd grade, and his cute sister was the cute 8th grade cheerleader. I went to grade school in Orel, which is 8 miles from the Pine Ridge border, and so I'm familiar with the Pine Ridge area. So anyway, I just appreciate you, and he's working at Perkins now and is doing extremely well.
All right, thank you. Next, Angel. And Angel, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Wenlin. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I didn't really know how this was all gonna go, so I'm just kind of winging it. My name is Angel Wenlin. I live at 1218 Pearl Harbor. I have 2 jobs. I work for FedEx, and I moonlight at a casino. I receive food stamps for my daughter and Medi-Cal, and then I receive assistance on my housing. Yet I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. I came Wednesday to be aware that I had a shut-off notice in my water bill. I called down there. I said, oh my gosh, I still have my water turned on though. I would like to take care of it. She says, no problem, we're not shutting off till Monday. Come on down, take care of the bill, you'll be fine. I went down there. Well, first I left my house, my tire was flat. I had to walk to my mother's to get her car. I went down there, paid my bill, discussed it with the lady, spoke with the gentleman, a little holiday pleasantries, thought, what a great day. Managed it, had it handled. Today, this morning, I get up, my stuff shut off. I called down there to speak with Miss Connie, who treated me extremely rude, accused me of lying, saying that I didn't pay my bill till today because it didn't post till today. No, Miss Connie, you're wrong. I said I expressed to her, I could show her on my debit card where it had been taken out on Wednesday. My bill had been paid on Wednesday. She then put me on hold for a long time, came back, said it didn't matter. I could either come to the board, which I thought was laughable. Why would I bring something so trivial here, right? I could pay the bill, or I could wait for her to email her boss. During our conversation, I had gotten in my mom's car and drove down here. So when she told me that no one was gonna say anything different than what she had said, I came in here, spoke to the lady at the window. Miss Connie was giving me a runaround, wanting a code and all this stuff. So I asked the lady at the window, did I not get a code from you on Wednesday? Do you remember me? She remembered me and my flat tire. I asked her what's going on. She says, well, Connie's where it's at. I said, there's gotta be someone else. There has to be someone else. She gets her boss. Her boss sends me upstairs to talk to Shannon, who I expressed everything in much more detail than I am expressing to you. I had a water leak under my home. In the last 2 months, I have paid, my landlord paid $400 on my bill. I've paid numerous $300 because I got a shut off on that. So it's not like this is a delinquent bill I'm not aware of. I'm taking care of it. It's $88, okay? I went down and paid my $88 on Wednesday. So I spoke with Shannon. Shannon says to me that they will make a deal with me. They can give me money off if I only give proof that my water bill. Great, that's all great, Shannon, but that has nothing to do with I paid my bill, why do I not have service? Okay? She passes the buck to Mr. McMacken, who gave me the same runaround, who told me I could pay he wanted to make me a deal on half of my water. I could pay $90 to get my water turned back on. Why is my bill inflated $100 for shut-off fees and hookup fees when I came down, made an arrangement? When your bill is due and it's late, you have your responsibilities to pay it or make arrangements. I made arrangements. I committed to my arrangement and I paid my arrangement. They did not give me my service. And I'm extremely upset that I was directed here to be humiliated and put all my garbage
Ma'am.
out here, and you guys aren't even gonna do anything about it.
Ma'am,
There's no resolution.
I'm sorry, the time is up. I am going to have somebody meet you out in the hallway to discuss.
you.
I'm sorry you had to do that. You shouldn't have had to
you.
come here to do that,
Thank
and I'm
you.
sorry. Can we have a staff member, thank you, Daniel, join her, and we'll resolve that issue. Thank you. Jenny Alaska.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am new to this town of about 3.5 months. I live in an area which is probably not the best in town. I felt pretty safe. Hold on. Okay. I felt pretty safe until about 2 weeks ago. I make these trees out of coat hangers. I was teaching a class on November 16. So on November 15, I was loading my car, carrying them like this, like that. And so I had 4 of them. I was carrying them out to the back of my car. The hood was up, put them in the back of the car, walked around to the back seat, opened the door, cleared off the seat, put those 4 trees in the back on the floorboard like that, shut the door, went 15 feet to get a box to bring back into the car. And by the time I got back to my car, there was movement in it. So I yelled, "Get out of my car!" And this thing jumps out, runs. I couldn't see where they were going because my car was blocking it. I then see this thing go to a door. And I'm like, really? So I shut the door of my car. I go back to the back of the car. I shut the hood, or shut the back end, and there's a bike there. So I pick up the bike and I roll it into my apartment. I shut the door. Go back into the spare bedroom, take my binoculars, and start watching for about 40 minutes. 2 people came out wandering the neighborhood, I'm sure looking for the bike. And then I saw the person who got in my car. All they did was took off their coat or their hoodie thing. So it was a young kid, a young boy. So I call the police. I tell them what happens. I don't talk on the phone a lot because I have a brain injury. And the officer or the lady on the phone was very, very nice. And so I call, the officer comes, I tell him all this, what happens. He sees the bike in the apartment. He says, well, that's a nice bike. I said, yeah, probably stolen. I said, but I don't want it. And so he said, I'll take it to the apartment to see if they acknowledge it's their bike. And I said, good idea. So he goes, he leaves, and then I shut the door, and I'm thinking it's over. About 45 minutes later, the officer comes back to my apartment with the mom of this boy. And so Mom, of course, says, how do you know? And I just kind of did this, and I said, how old is your son? And she said 16. And I said, great way to start a 16-year-old life. I said, she said, he helps everybody around here. I said, he's learning to help himself. I said, I want your son, or I looked at the officer and I said, do you have programs here for kids? And he just kind of looked at me. I said, fine. I looked at her and I said, your son is mine until January 1st. For 17 years, I've been doing a music ministry in nursing homes, hospitals, and hospice.
Ms. Alaska.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
the time is up.
Okay, could I talk to somebody
Did you need
then?
to talk to we have our assistant chief here.
Yeah, because
member
I
of our
want to
police
talk to
department.
somebody. Yes.
They'll speak with you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. That will conclude general public comment, and we will move on to non-public hearing items 1 through 41, and open public comment for items 1 through 34. I do not have any speaker request forms, so we will close public comment for items 1 through 34 and move on to consent items 1 through 34. Would the council wish to remove any items for separate consideration or approve the balance of the items? Oh, sorry. 34. Okay, we got a motion to approve items 1 through 33 and not approve 34. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we move on to item 34, approve consideration to transfer funding for 2025 equipment replacement. Councilor Sechrist?
Thank you, Mayor. If I may direct some questions or a question to Director Ainsley, please.
Sure thing.
Director Ainsley, I know you gave a pretty good explanation of this, the intention behind allocating or relocating vehicle purchases in the CIP funding, but if you could further explain just this request and details of the intentions of moving the vehicle and equipment purchases from the general fund to the CIP fund, and what that might look like in the future years and how we fund those requests. Thank you.
We chime back in there, Director Ainsley? All right, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, absolutely. That's an excellent question. So, as we had begun discussions during the formulation and adoption of the 2025 budget, what we were trying to do is to ensure that long-term the general fund as well as all of our funds are truly in balance. As I think the council is well aware, for the last several years there's been a significant usage of undesignated cash reserves into the general fund. We reduced that this year, and we're reducing it next year as well. That requires additional revenue as well as additional cost savings, and so there were some things that were eliminated, other things that were kind of right-sized. One of the items that was included in the 2025 budget was removing the general fund equipment. And I want to make sure everyone understands that's just general fund. That's not the enterprise fund. So it's not a garbage truck. It's not an ambulance, but the general fund equipment, moving those purchases out of the general fund and to place those into the capital improvement fund. That is typical of most communities throughout the state of South Dakota. Those are capital assets that are depreciated over a long period of time, and they're used obviously for a decade, 2 decades, something like that, and so it makes sense for that to be paid out of that funding stream, which is why usually that's done. The CIP program has already been established essentially for 5 years, with the projects that, of course, are scheduled to be under construction in 2025. You don't really want to reallocate any of those because they're already in final plan development and will be going out to bid soon, or some of those are actually already currently under construction. So what we did was look at a list of several different projects that had not been started, or projects that were essentially completed that there was additional money left over. Allocating those for equipment purchase in 2025. As you brought up, Counselor, that's truly just the funding mechanism for 2025. That would not be for 2026, 27, and so on and so forth. What we are doing right now is we are reviewing our CIP policy, and we are looking at bringing forward to the council probably in January or February a different allocation that would go into effect beginning in 2026 and moving forward to ensure that the general fund equipment can be purchased through that fund, but also just making sure that the top priorities are truly funded in an ongoing fashion. One of the things that you can see in here is that some of the equipment, some of the projects that have been funded are actually funded through other streams as well. And one that I want to point out is Highway 79 and Folsom signalization. That's being funded through a TIF. And so that's additional funds that aren't truly necessary to be paid for out of the CIP. And so those are the sorts of things that we want to ensure that we're properly prioritizing those, so that the public's seeing the improvements as quickly as possible, and also that the necessary equipment that is the highest need is what's funded. I do want to point out, though, that even with this transfer, there is not going to be a sufficient amount to fully fund all of the department's requests in 2025 for equipment. And so if the council does approve this action, we still will be doing a prioritization of those and funding just what is the absolute highest necessity and not everything.
Thank you. So all future purchase requests would be submitted through the CIP committee and then onto City Council for consideration. So you'd have an extra layer to vet the process. I'm understanding that correctly. I guess just on the surface, it's a little concerning for me because we have $5 million worth of equipment requests submitted here for the next year, and I feel like we are transferring previously general fund allocated expenses into CIP, which is already so limited for our capital improvements and road reconstruction and street maintenance and all of these projects that are transferring funds from existing projects in the 24 that weren't used. I guess I just would question why haven't they been used? With our bridge maintenance, for example, at $150,000 budget, doesn't have a project, I can see that, but we saw a presentation not too long ago with all the bridge needs in the community, and so I would just be curious how we could be more efficient with that process, and also reallocating these funds from the general fund is just freeing up additional salary expenses that had been previously budgeted but not funding, I'm assuming. Would that be correct to associate with?
It's paying for expenses that truly previously did not have a matching revenue stream, and so that became the issue. Again, over the last several years, there's been a significant use of undesignated cash that was really allowed because there was so much COVID capital that was coming into this city as well as every city across America and every county and every state. And so that allowed there to be a lot of additional expenditures. And I think the reality is that I think everyone agrees that those days are over, and we need to ensure that our revenue streams are actually matching what our expenses are. And so that's what this attempt is to try to ensure that our operational revenues are used for our operational expenses. And so the capital equipment truly are not really operational expenses. Fuel and maintenance of the equipment, all of those sorts of things are the operational, but as far as the cost for a new motor grader, that's really more of a capital asset, and so that's where that comes from, the capital improvement fund. Without a doubt, I fully agree with you that we have a significant need for capital improvements. I think that's where we have to ensure that we're doing as good of a job as possible as stewards of the taxpayers' resources to make sure that we're addressing as many of those capital needs, which is why, whether it's through the grants division or also through TIFs, we're making more and more use of additional resources to get a lot of those capital projects done, so we're not fully just using the CIP fund, because the CIP fund is not large enough to do everything.
Yes, I think we're at 22 million, so this would just be under a quarter of our total CIP fund for 2025. Anyhow, well, thank you, Director Ainsley. I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. Looking for a motion. Motion by Roberts, second by Roseland to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That will take us to the end of the consent items, and we will move on to non-consent items. Items 35 through 41. In open public comment for items 35 through 41, I do have a couple of speaker request forms. First, for item 37, we have Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mayor and Alderpersons. Eric Hikas, 1115 West Boulevard, President of TerraSite Design. I'm here for questions if needed on this item.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. Next, for item 39, we have Kittrick Jeffries. As a reminder, you got 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Kittrick Jeffries. Thank you for having me tonight, and I am one of the owners of Puffy's LLC. You probably don't have the full story on item 39, but I'm sure that you're aware that Puffy's has 5 medical marijuana licenses with the state of South Dakota that are currently going through an appeals process concerning whether Puffy's was operational under the state administrative rule. On October 2nd, the South Dakota Supreme Court listened to oral arguments concerning that state administrative rule. A final determination of that case should be forthcoming, which will give direction to Rapid City on how to best proceed. When we first learned that the state was challenging 4 of our licenses, we filed a lawsuit to bring the issue before a judge. The 5th license was actually approved by the city and the state and issued licenses by both governing bodies. But when we applied for a building permit, the state intervened and told the city that the 5th license was now also being challenged, so the city refused to issue us a building permit, despite our possession of that state license. We have done everything in our power and spent millions of dollars in this process trying to open our doors, including hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation. We are a safe and effective operator, as evidenced through over a dozen inspections by the South Dakota Department of Health. Now, after a year and a half of communications from the city that they did not want to change the status quo and that they were going to allow the legal process to play out, Puffy's is being told that that process will not be allowed to play out. And I can hope you can certainly see how Puffy's finds that unfair. And maybe the law isn't supposed to be fair. Lots of people say that, but here's why, what I want you to know as you consider what to do on this issue, particularly as it relates to the medical marijuana licenses. The only reason Puffy's has not proceeded to build its 5 dispensaries is because the City of Rapid City officials indicated that they did not want to issue us our building permits since there was a challenge of our state licenses. They deferred to the state when denying our medical cannabis building permit. And we ask you to continue to defer to the state and keep the moratorium in effect and follow that status quo. Our ask is very simple, to keep the moratorium in place until final determination of the current litigation with the state. Again, my name is Kit Jeffries. I will stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And that will conclude public comment for non-consent items, and we will move on to item 35, a second reading of ordinance number 6641, an ordinance to amend chapter 8.24 of the Rapid City Municipal Code to adopt the 2024 International Fire Code. Councilor Stroman, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to approve, and if I can get a second, retain the floor.
All right, got a motion by Stroman, second by Roberts. You have the floor, Mr. Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out, this is a major revamp or revision of the fire code that took a lot of effort and a lot of time, and it can sometimes be tedious work working through a code and trying to match things up with an international fire code and your municipality's own needs and codes. And I know that Fire Chief Culberson and Division Chief Chip Primus worked with the City Attorney's Office, but they spent a lot of time getting input from various stakeholders and gathering as much information as they could get to arrive at this revision. And I think that they're to be commended for the efforts that they put in. And I think that we should approve this ordinance to amend the fire code. I yield.
Thank you. All right, the motion on the floor is to approve the second reading. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 36, first reading of ordinance number 6639, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Eduardo Lopez for City of Rapid City Public Works Department for rezoning request from low-density residential District 1 to Public District for property generally described as being located at 3008 Springbrook Road. Got a motion by Sechrist, second by Roseland to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 37, first reading of ordinance number 6642, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Terrasite Design for a rezoning request from general commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located southwest of the intersection of West Omaha Street and National Street. Motion by Sechrist, second by Roseland to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 38, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6644, an ordinance amending Title 17 to add the definition of a data center and regulate data centers in light industrial districts and heavy industrial districts. Got a motion by Lehman, second by Roberts to approve. Councilor Stroman would like to weigh in.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will be voting to approve this too, but I just wanted to point out that Director Fisher was very receptive to the concerns that some of the council members raised to her about the data center ordinance and how this would be revised. And I know that she worked with other city staff to try to come up with a solution that works, and I think this does work for us, and I appreciate the effort that she made to do that, and also to put in some other safeguards or tell us about safeguards, including the building permit. And so I think we're covered, and I think this is a good move for the city of Rapid City, and it's going to enhance our city. So I would urge the council to approve this.
And that is the motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 39, provide direction regarding the moratorium of the acceptance of applications for new cannabis dispensary licenses. And Councilor Stroman, are you chimed in, or did you just stay chimed in?
I just stayed on, but I can go in.
All right, we'll let you go first.
I'd like to make a motion that we keep the moratorium in place until the litigation that's currently pending is concluded, and if I can get a second.
All right, we got a second by Maher. Do you want to keep the floor?
Sure.
All right.
Briefly. I think it's important in this case that we examine what's going on in the court system. We aren't in we aren't isolated here. And what the court does with the pending case, the Supreme Court does with the pending case, is going to directly affect the direction that we take with these medical marijuana licenses. And I think it's prudent for us, and the best move for us is to have the moratorium in place until, at least until after we get a decision from the Supreme Court, and that will give us the information that we need to move ahead in a wise and discerning manner. So I urge you to keep the moratorium in place until such time as the Supreme Court renders a decision. I yield.
Thank you. I have the city attorney wishing to weigh in. Joel Endine.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, certainly if you lift the moratorium and we try to redistribute those 5 licenses, it's likely to end up in litigation. As most of you are aware, we're already in litigation over the fact we haven't issued those 5 licenses as well. So it's kind of one or the other. I would disagree a little bit. The state has rules that say you have to be operational. Clearly, Puffy's has challenged whether or not they were operational under the administrative rules. The city also has a requirement that you be operational within a year. We are not part of that litigation with the state. The city ordinance says that operation of the licensed establishment for the purpose provided in this chapter no later than 1 year after the city's issuance of the annual license. You know, we didn't redistribute those because they had been issued to Puffy's separately from the state license. So when Puffy's and the state got into litigation, ours were valid. But it's been a year, they aren't operational. So I have no legal basis until you entered the moratorium to not issue those licenses. So if you want to continue the moratorium, that's certainly your option. Then the other lawsuit will continue. If you lift the moratorium and we allocate those licenses, we will probably get sued by Puffy's, but I think it is a separate issue from the issue with the state. And I think even if there's a decision in the state license, there's a question about whether or not those licenses, because they weren't operational under the city ordinance within a year, are still valid. So I understand it's all complicated, but I just don't know that the result of the state lawsuit impacts our licenses or the licenses we've tentatively issued.
Okay, right now I have a motion on the floor to continue the moratorium until the resolution of the pending litigation with Puffy's. With that, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Is that Sechrist and Evans? Me. Well, let's go to a roll call vote. I can't distinguish all. Everybody's trying to outshout each other. That's all I know. All right. Heidi?
Stroman?
Aye.
Pettigrew? Sechrist? Bieberdorf? Ham? Evans? Roseland? Lehman? Maher? Roberts? Motion passes 7-3.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 40, a request by Advanced Design Engineering and Surveying, Inc. for Black Hills Industrial Center, LLC, for a preliminary subdivision plan for lots 1 and 2 of Block 1, lots 1 through 7 of Block 2, and lots 1 through 3 and drainage lot of Block 3 of Black Hills Industrial Center, generally described as being located east of Highway 79, lying south and north of Old Folsom Road, and the recommendations to approve with stipulations. Okay, we have a motion by Roberts to approve with stipulations with a aye and second from Councilor Roseland. All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 41, approve the attached list of 2025 alcohol beverage license renewals, which have been vetted and approved by the Rapid City Police Department and the Rapid City Fire Department. Motion by Roberts, second by Ham to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the public hearing items, items 42 through 53, and we will open the public hearing for items 42 through 53. I do not have any speaker request forms, so we will close public hearing for items 42 through 53 and move to consent public hearing items 42 through 52. Would the council wish to remove? Move to approve them all. Well, don't even let me finish the sentence. Moved by Roberts, second by Lehman to approve items 42 through 52. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the end of consent public hearing calendar. We will move on to non-consent public hearing item 53. Approve resolution 2024-091, a request for amendment number 1 to project plan for TID number 83, project plan for the Homestead Street extension for property generally described as being located on Homestead Street east of Elkville Road between Timmons Boulevard and Missoula Street. And we will begin with Councilor Roberts.
Thank you. I just need to abstain from this. I have a piece of property for sale within the TID boundary.
Thank you. Duly noted. Councilor Sechrist.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be voting in support of this item. I just wanted to thank the city staff and our TIF administrator for offering up their time and explanation for this particular item and just the TIF process in general. I think it's been very helpful, and we certainly appreciate the additional time and resources that you put into that opportunity for us. I support this project. I think that the amenities brought to this neighborhood will significantly increase the quality of life to this area, and I just really appreciate the work that's gone into this to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Evans, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Sechrist over there. This is all TIDs are not created equal. And I think we've done a pretty good job over the last couple of years approving ones that seem to really be paying off. And this is a great one in that it does so many things for the neighborhood, helps even our own departments locate facilities where they need to be, provides recreation. And again, it's going to really increase the taxes for that area. So I think this is a great thing. So you got my support. Thank you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like Vicki Fisher to just give a brief overview of what the benefits are to the community for their educational purposes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this amendment is to increase the original TIF by 35%, which is allowed by our policy. So it's slightly under $1 million. The original developer recognized that there is additional increment left in this TIF that is being captured. And as a part of that, we're going to use that increment to purchase 4 lots that will be used by the city. One will be for a fire station and potentially a police precinct as a part of that fire station. 2 of the lots will be used for parkland and maybe even some money to go towards some of the park improvements. And then there's a drainage element for regional drainage that will be captured as well. These are all things that otherwise the city would have to write a check for. And now the TIF will be used to cover those expenses and stand up some much needed services, which is truly a part of the infrastructure that's needed when a residential development is being allowed in an area of our community.
Thank you for clearly stating the public benefit for that. So with that, we have a motion on the floor to approve. Did we get a motion yet? Yeah. Got a motion by Lehman, second by Ham. I don't think I did. Or had a motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with 1 abstention from John Roberts. And that will take us to the bill list, item number 54. With that, we'll go to Finance Director Daniel Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The total bills for tonight are $13,225,226.02.
Motion by Roberts, second by Maher to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Roseland, second by Ham. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.